Hi folks, this is Sarah Marshall, your operations architect, and this is our 13th episode in our leadership series. And today in this episode and the next one, we are going to tackle culture and how we can use culture as leaders to do some of the heavy lifting for leadership. In this episode, we're going to talk about culture as shared communal values, as the way we use organizationally to curate an inspiration and demand for success behaviors amongst the folks that are in the organization. And in culture can do a lot of the heavy lifting for leadership or stand in for leadership when we're not around, but we have to set it up and curate it in a way that makes it work well. And in lieu of our active leadership guidance, if we're off doing something else, culture stands in to tell us what we should and shouldn't be doing to be successful. It establishes the values in the heart of the organization. It aligns the team to purpose and objectives, and it ensures effective organizational performance through effective, successful organizational behaviors. And it sets expectations for how we work together and contribute to the organizational cause. Let's jump into it. And we start with culture as the vessel within which we work. We're setting up this vessel that we work together in that gives us a sense of what kind of behaviors are going to lead to success and which ones won't. And we either consciously or unconsciously align to the culture we establish. Culture establishes our operating morals, and by morals we're not talking about good or bad or evil or beneficial or right or wrong. We are simply establishing a set of norms and values against which we will conform in order to fit into the organization and drive in the same direction as the rest of the folks in the organization. In this sense, green means we should be doing something. In fact, we are urged to exhibit certain behaviors or do certain things within the organization. Yellow means be cautious. You want to move ahead, but you're kind of trending on the line where something could go wrong with that behavior or those actions. Orange means it's most likely problematic, that the likely outcome is more detrimental than the positive impacts you'll deliver. And red is you just don't want to go there at all. There is that will definitely lead to heartache and bad things. So we want to set up a culture that lets us know what's appropriate in the way of performance and actions and behaviors and fits within the organizational mission. Now, to make this more concrete, the culture of a set of firefighters is going to be very different than the culture of academics. Firefighters act as a team, they work in unison, they take directions, they do all that because people's lives are on the line. People can get harmed if they don't do it the way that they're being directed to be doing it. Whereas academics tend to work individually, they tend to develop their theories and practices on their own and then put them in front of each other in the cauldron of testing whether those things are going to work across the board, whether others agree with them or disagree, and why. So it's a very different kind of culture in academics than you would with firefighters. And that is true no matter what kind of organization you're in. The culture should fit the organization and the organization's goals. Culture is difficult to build, is very fragile, and can be destroyed in an instant. Typically, in business organizations, when you have a reduction in force, the culture is going to be endangered by that activity, and there's a lot of things that you may need to do to maintain it if you're going to maintain it. And sometimes you just lose it through those big organizational shifts. We're going to start with this question of why. And LifeWise, there's two different approaches to get to why. One is the philosophical approach, in which we have beliefs that we have established. And on those beliefs, we set up values and principles for which we will make our decisions and that dictate our behaviors. We set up languages and symbols. Every company's icons and logos, etc., are all part of language and symbols. The way we talk about our work, the words we use to describe it, all create language and symbols around that sit on top of our values and tell us something about the organization. We set up rituals. In organizations, they may be company meetings. They may be ways we work together. But we have a set of rituals that we operate on. And all that establishes a set of social norms, patterns within which we operate. On the other side is the scientific method in which we have discovery of objective facts, observations, documented behaviors, and we establish a hypothesis of what is driving those facts and behaviors, and then we want to test that hypothesis. We do further investigation to determine whether our hypotheses about the objective facts and behaviors holds together, and if it holds together long enough with enough investigation, we can develop a theory around it, which is a well-substantiated explanation of why things are working the way they are, and we set up scientific principles based on those theories. E equals mc squared is a highly tested theory that was developed years ago by Einstein, but has been tested over and over again over the years to develop a set of scientific principles. So both of these sides are critical to us developing culture. We're going to spend all of our time in this episode on the philosophical approach, and then in the next episode we're going to talk about the scientific approach. We need both sides to set up the vessel in which we operate with our cultural norms, what we will and we won't do. Now, on the philosophical side, we start with belief. We have faith in something, and faith means that you believe in something that can't necessarily be proven. And there is a critical reason for faith. And I'm going to read this statement. This was a movie, Secondhand Lions, in which a young kid lives with he moves in with his great uncles, and they are storied adventurers, and the young nephew is asking his great uncle about some of these adventures and whether they're true or not. And Hub, the great uncle, said, if you want to believe in something, believe in it. Just because something ain't true doesn't mean you can't believe in it. Sometimes the things that may or may not be true are the things man needs to believe most. That people are basically good, that honor, courage, and virtue mean everything, that power and money and power, mean nothing, that good always triumphs over evil, and I want you to remember this, that love, true love, never dies. It doesn't matter if they're true or not. You see, a man should believe in those things because they are things worth believing in. Hub is setting up a point that belief may or may not be true, but it's important to have because it points us in a direction. It gives us a point of view. It provides something for us to reach towards and aspire to. So setting up a belief is critical. It's kind of the foundation of culture, in that it gives us a powerful driver for our actions and the outcomes of our actions. Our personal culture is layered with a lot of different things that we need to consider. Communal culture tends to impose conformity towards that community. So this is important in organizations because we have a communal culture within our organization that we are attempting to find people to fit in. So we need to make sure that people's personal culture fits in with our communal culture that we're setting up within our organization. So we have an individual core set of beliefs. They're driven by our spiritual beliefs, our communal beliefs, and our vocational beliefs. Spiritual beliefs answering the why. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is the nature of reality and consciousness, etc. They're the core beliefs that every human being has regardless of their approach to this. Communal beliefs are the beliefs of the community. What is our familial culture, the culture of the community that we live in, the region, the nation, universal mores like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Um, those things are things that we believe in when we're fitting inside of a culture. And our fit within that culture tells us what kind of ride we're going to have. Is it going to be an easy ride or a difficult ride? And if our personal culture doesn't fit within the communal culture, then we are going to struggle. So we have to make decisions about how closely we're going to adhere to our communal beliefs. Our vocational beliefs are more around the kind of work we do and why we do it and what's important about it and what we're bringing to the table in terms of our vocations. All those kinds of things fit together as a layered set of cultures that each one of us have. But remember, as we're going into an organization, we need to make sure that our personal individual core beliefs fit within the organizational beliefs. Or there, and that point about communal culture, if we don't fit in, we're going to have a hard time of it in the organization. And organizations do interview for culture along with lots of other things. Here's an example of culture not being sedentary. Culture changes over time. Our individual culture might change over time. Our communal culture will definitely change over time, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. But almost overnight, one example is COVID changed how we worked. We started working remote, how we completed our errands. So we may be masked when we went out and completed errands, or we may just not do errands. We may have stuff come to us. And the way we personally engage with each other, checking in, making sure that each other's healthy, that sort of thing. As soon as that clear and present risk went away, we started reverting to our old norms. So situationally, culture will shift to deal with the thing in the moment. It also shifts over time. Here's an organizational behavioral example. Google, in its early life, had this belief in don't be evil. And there's lots of stories about product development talking about whether that product was going to be evil or not. There's a couple of issues with this that changed Google, and this went away from Google over time. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is evil is pretty subjective. If you just say don't be evil, it's hard to parse what that actually means, and that leads to a lot of discussions that may just rat hole without meaningful outcomes. The other thing that is the larger issue over time is if you constrain yourself to act in only certain ways and other organizations do not, you're at a competitive disadvantage. Now, in Google's early years, when they operated in abundance, they were making plenty of money on their search capability, et cetera, it didn't matter because they could hold a moral high ground and other organizations could do other things, and it didn't really touch Google's revenue. Over time, as more competition came in place and Google had to look at different things, it couldn't handle the constraints of those high-minded ideals in times of scarcity. So that naturally went away. Now, folks at Google may argue that that they still operate under that way, but that having worked at Google, I could definitely see that don't be evil mindset dissipating over time as things got more difficult. This points to shifts in the world, shifts in the organization, shifts in the person, driving longer term changes in culture. So the things to take away from this is culture can be used as a powerful tool by leadership in driving operating norms for the organization. It gives you guidance when somebody isn't around to give you guidance so that you know what is going to be successful in the ways of behaviors and actions. The culture is founded on beliefs, and those beliefs don't necessarily have to be true, but they do have to be aspirational. They provide a direction. They provide a true north to our behaviors. And communal cultures, such as an organization and individual culture, needs to have a good fit for that individual to do well within the organization and that organization to be able to handle the individuals within it. So organizations typically, when they're recruiting, spend a lot of time looking at whether that person is going to be a good cultural fit for their organization. But people are people, they're individual, and their individual cultures are going to be somewhat at variance with an organizational culture. So it's important to strike the balance of giving people latitude to live within their personal culture as well as the organizational culture. And the culture is going to change over time. It's going to, and it's changing to support organizational success. We're going to get into some examples of that in the next episode. Um, if you want to read more about the power of culture, you can read my article, The Power of Culture, The Power of Belief, in my blog, www.operations-architect.com. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, feedback is welcome. Feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much.